Hey YNR fans! Waving hand, welcome to YNR Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. Claire Newman will ask Kyle Abbott for the complete Audra Charles narrative, according to the Young and the Restless preview video for the week of August 25th to 29th. If Victor Newman's statements are accurate, then Colin Atkinson's final scam will also be exposed. Lily Winters presses Holden Novak to reveal Kane's actual plan as the YNR weekly promo begins. Holden will contend that Lily is mistaken if she believes he is aware of Kane's overarching strategy. Holden will try to persuade Lily that they are both in the dark, but she will find that extremely difficult to believe. Victor will then meet Kane on his train and provide him some clues on Colin's most recent big scam. Victor will discuss Kane's enormous Genoa City real estate grab and imply that it was the product of corrupt money because Kane will be curious about what Victor is saying. Victor will pretend that he trusted Colin too much given his past, even if Kane insists that he earned all of his income legally. Victor might maintain that Kane's father lied, despite Colin's assertion that he wished to assist Kane in doing things correctly. Claire will never be able to get rid of the notion that Kyle hasn't given her the complete story. Regarding what transpired with Audra at Kane's summer residence, Kyle is in fact keeping things to himself. Kyle, is there anything you haven't shared with me regarding Audra and your time in Nice? Anything? In the weekly preview video for YNR, Claire poses the question. Although Claire dislikes questioning her partner, she is unable to stop herself after Audra has been making so many accusations against Kyle. Claire isn't feeling quite right, so she will ask Kyle for the whole truth and hope he will tell her. Will Kyle give in to the pressure from Jack Abbott and Diane Jenkins Abbott to come clean as well? If Kyle lies to Claire now, he might dig himself an even deeper hole. Kyle might reveal the one kiss he's been keeping to himself, but that's not the whole tale. When Kyle and Audra went too near on the bed during their full-fledged makeout session, Kyle was only wearing a towel. Keep checking back for more details on Claire's impending pain, as you can guarantee Kyle's secrets will eventually come to light. Another wave of terrible news regarding Claire and Kyle's romance is on the horizon, according to spoilers for the Young and the Restless. Colin had always cast a shadow over the lives of anyone he came into contact with, and his name was muttered in Genoa City with distrust and terror. He had been playing his game for years, money trails that seemed to disappear into thin air, scams that tore families apart, and scams that left wounds too deep to mend. However, rumors spread that Colin's final scam had set its course as the sun sank below the Chancellor estate and the dark shadows of the past were cast across the walls. It wasn't another scam, not another hollow assurance cloaked in slick charm. The stakes were higher this time, and Kyle, Claire, Audra, and everyone else entangled in the web he left behind would all be affected. Colin had left traces, just enough to pique interest and provoke deadly inquiries from the appropriate kind of adversaries. For the majority of his life, Kyle Abbott had been attempting to make sense of the chaotic families in Genoa City, but recently, his own decisions had left him feeling confused and remorseful. He was unable to unravel the mess that had accumulated from his commercial activities, personal errors, and damaged relationships with those closest to him. He was frozen, however, by something in Claire Newman's eyes as she walked toward him. She arrived without the typical Abbott drama, accusations, or even rage. Rather, she arrived with an almost eerie serenity. Claire possessed the unique capacity to see right through people and make them confront things they would like to ignore. With a firm yet piercing tone, she said, "Kyle, I need you to tell me everything you know about Audra. The entire narrative. Don't hold back." The request made Kyle wince. Audra Charles was a difficult woman to describe. Ambition, treachery, secrets, and instances where alliance and manipulation were confused were all part of their past. How could he express that without simultaneously tearing himself apart? Claire persisted despite his attempts to dismiss her with evasive remarks. Her inquiry wasn't motivated by idle curiosity. She had to know. She was tense, her hands clasped so tightly that her knuckles whitened, and Kyle could see it. Kyle couldn't understand why Claire wasn't come to gossip but rather to seek the truth. Something else flickered in her eyes, fear mingled with a sort of quiet wrath, but he wanted to demand her explanations, to put her back in the forefront. She needed Kyle to give her the edges so she could see the entire picture, even though she already knew the parts of the puzzle. Recently, Colin's name had come up in whispered discussions, his schemes re-entering the lives of many who simply wanted to go on. Kyle had heard tales of shadow businesses, fraudulent investments, and accounts that had been taken. It was unclear if Colin had someone younger and more hungry working for him or if he was planning these actions from a distance. Kyle was aware, and he was afraid to acknowledge it, that those rumors included Audra's name. Although she wasn't the mastermind, she wasn't blameless either. Stalling, he leaned against the counter and ran his palm over his face. Finally, he continued in a heavy voice, "Claire, you don't want this story. You can't go back once you hear it." Claire didn't flinch, though. She didn't flinch. Her words pierced his hesitancy as she leaned closer. "I don't give a damn if I get burned. I have to find out what she can do." And there it was, the link Kyle hadn't yet figured out. "I need to know what Colin pulled her into." Claire felt Audra was involved in Colin's deception, which was more than simply a faceless fraud. Perhaps voluntarily, perhaps not. Kyle realized he couldn't keep avoiding in any case. If Colin's final move was as significant as it seemed, Genoa City was going to confront a storm, so he owed Claire the truth, not just because she asked. Kyle started from the beginning, when Audra entered their lives with her glitzy appeal and piercing ambition. She had a way of coming across as the ideal partner for both professional and personal relationships. However, there was always an angle and a need for leverage beneath the surface. Kyle acknowledged that he had been drawn into her orbit and that her self-assurance had made him oblivious to the fissures that were developing beneath their arrangement. He said, almost resentfully, "She's brilliant. She doesn't play fairly, though. She hasn't. You don't even realize you're losing ground with Audra until she's already taken everything away from you." Claire didn't step in or soften. Instead, she took in every word as if it were the confession she had been waiting for. Kyle saw glimpses of his own shortcomings as he pieced the story together, how he had enabled Audra to manipulate events, how he had disregarded advice from people close to him, and how he had allowed himself to feel in charge when, in fact, she was in charge. And now that Colin's name was coming up again, he understood how risky that combination could be. Colin had the expertise, Audra had the guile, and the two of them could precisely destroy lives. "This isn't a clean version," Kyle whispered softly, almost to himself. "I didn't realize it until it was too late, but every transaction she touched had a price." When Claire did speak, it was in a lower but no less ferocious tone. "Then describe the worst thing she has ever done to me." Kyle hesitated because the worst thing wasn't just about Audra, it was also about him. "The thing you swore you'd never say out loud." It had to do with the evening he had decided to side with her against those who ought to have been his supporters. It was about sacrificing trust in order to get power. His words trailed off like a burden as he inhaled. "I was set up to take the fall by her. She made sure I was left to bear the blame when a deal went awry. My family believed that I had gone insane. Perhaps I had, since I had put my trust in her. Like she always does, she left immaculate." Claire's response was one of confirmation rather than horror. She may have previously known some of it, but she had a suspicion. But it was Kyle's admission and the resentment in his voice that put the pieces together. Her eyes narrowed with a clarity that unnerved him as she leaned back. She was utilized by Colin. Or she took advantage of him. In any case, this connects them. And Audra's not just involved, she's important if Colin is plotting one last scam. The words hit Kyle more deeply than he wanted to acknowledge. He hadn't noticed the bigger picture because he had been preoccupied with his own errors with Audra. If Claire was correct, Colin was moving the board and Audra was his queen, not merely committing another financial scam. They were in a dense, oppressive stillness until Claire broke it once more. "Kyle, you'll assist me in stopping them if you truly want to put this right. No more defending her. No more justifications. Before it destroys someone else, we learn about Colin's most recent scam." Kyle swallowed hard. He wanted to dispute, leave, and distance himself from Colin and Audra. But he knew in his heart that Claire was correct. He owed his family atonement, he owed her honesty, and perhaps he owed himself the opportunity to defend himself. Because this was about surviving in a place where secrets were deadly, not just a story. And the past and present started to clash as night fell over Genoa City. Kyle's regrets, Claire's resolve, Audra's ambition, and Colin's plots all twisted into a web that was getting tighter by the moment. At last, Kyle gave a faint but determined nod. "All right. I will reveal all to you. However, there is no turning back once we get started." Long-kept secrets, unexpected disclosures, and the unrelenting search for the truth, often motivated by the most intimate of motives, are all interwoven throughout the story of the young and the restless. The events leading up to Colin's last dissection and Claire's pressing request to Kyle for the full Audra tale constitute a crucial intersection of character growth, thematic investigation, and narrative advancement within this intricate framework. This is not a singular event, rather, it is the result of decades of dishonesty, the impetus for a fresh stage of introspection, and a critical analysis of the nature of truth in family. One must first recognize the complex past that unites these characters, a past in which financial dealings are inextricably linked to deeply personal betrayals, in order to fully comprehend the gravity of Claire's request and the scam that leads up to it. Colin Atkinson has been a superb manipulator during his time in Genoa City. His history with the Chancellor family is a tale of love, betrayal, and repeated treachery, especially with Jill Abbott. His plans have frequently been extravagant and have targeted the enormous wealth of the Chancellor estate, but they have always been motivated by a perverted feeling of entitlement and personal animosity. Because of this, his latest scam must be considered his masterpiece, the ultimate, desperate attempt of a guy whose identity is so intertwined with deceit that he cannot operate without it. This specific strategy most likely involves intricate financial manipulation, possibly using faked documents, insider knowledge, or a trusted connection within Chancellor Industries or Jabot's influential circles. Colin's swindles were frequently brilliant because of their timing and deliberate predation of emotional weaknesses rather than their intricacy. He was aware of his victims' weaknesses, including their pride, avarice, and enduring love for him, and he used this information as a weapon. The core family would have been rocked instantly if this last scam had been successful. For Jill, it would be a painful reminder of her consistently bad choices about Colin, a reopening of previously unhealed wounds. The emotional violation and humiliation of being deceived by the same individual again would be more important than the substantial money loss. Colin's deeds would operate as a dark mirror for Billy Abbott, whose own past is a struggle against his darker tendencies, and a warning about the isolation and devastation that come from living a life consumed with scheming. A climate of increased anxiety and paranoia would result from the consequences, reinforcing the belief that no one in Genoa City is ever really secure from the ghosts of the past. This environment serves as the crucial setting for Claire's individual search for the truth. It was eventually discovered that Claire Grace's arrival in Genoa City was the result of a horrific scam that Jordan had planned. To expose herself as a pawn in a vindictive game against Nikki Newman, her original identity as a stranger looking for connection was brutally torn away. She was left psychologically adrift by the pain of realizing her purpose and being used as a weapon against a family to whom she was naturally connected. Even if it was hesitant, her later admittance into the Newman fold provided a lifeline and the opportunity to reconstruct a true identity on top of the one that had been created for her. However, understanding and acceptance are not the same thing. Claire had to learn backward in order to forward. She had to place her own life in the broader, more sinister story that had influenced it. At this point, Audra Charles plays a crucial role. Audra is a direct connection to Claire's recent history and a voluntary or coerced accomplice in Jordan's scheme. Above all, however, Audra is a survivor of Genoa City, a woman who has successfully negotiated its perilous waters by learning how to use knowledge to her advantage and aligning herself with authority. She has parts of Claire's story that Claire doesn't have. Directly approaching Audra, however, would be challenging. Audra is infamously reticent, her loyalty is based on her own self-interest, and her motivations are frequently unclear. Claire would be unable to compete with Audra's skillful deceit in her newly discovered and vulnerable state. She needed a middleman, someone who had known Audra in the past but also had a certain type of emotional intelligence and empathy. She found Kyle Abbott as a result of this. Kyle is a clever strategic and psychological move. Intense, complicated, and ultimately transactional, Kyle and Audra's relationship was a collision of attraction and ambition where both sides knew the rules. He witnessed aspects of her that she concealed from the majority of the world, such as her anxieties, ambitions, and vulnerabilities. He was consequently in a rare position to give Claire the whole truth, not just the basic facts of what transpired, but also the motivations behind Audra's behavior. In addition, Kyle is at a turning point in his life. Corporate conflicts and personal betrayals have tested his sense of self, and his marriage to Summer has been a roller coaster of outside forces and inner uncertainties. Jack Abbott, his father, has created a strong family tradition by welcoming Claire with his usual generosity of spirit. Making the decision to approach Kyle is a calculated risk. She is appealing to a man who knows what it's like to be torn between families, to fight with legacy, and to seek atonement, not to a neutral party. As a result, there is a deep and unsaid weight to Claire and Kyle's talk. By asking Kyle for the whole Audra story, Claire is asking for much more than just a basic chronology of events or rumors. She is pleading for narrative consistency in her request. She is requesting Kyle's assistance in piecing together her own shattered past. She has to know how Audra fit into Jordan's plan, what she knew and when, and why she did it. Was it just business? Was she afraid of Jordan, or was there another factor at work? Claire believes that comprehending Audra's intentions is essential to comprehending how she manipulates others. It is a means of demythologizing the tragedy and turning it from a senseless, heinous crime into a terrifying, but understandable, series of human choices and weaknesses. She needs to go through this process in order to recover because one cannot forgive or move on from what they do not first comprehend. Kyle views this request as an unwanted yet important encroachment of the past into the present. It's difficult to retell the whole story of his involvement with Audra. It forces him to go back and examine a time in his life that might have been tainted by emotional complexity, professional competition, and personal regret. He needs to be completely honest with himself about his own intentions at the time in order to be completely honest with Claire. Examining his connection with Audra, which was frequently as much a strategic alliance as a romantic one, compels him to reflect on his own personality and decisions. But he also has a chance because of Claire's desire. By assisting her, he may support the Abbott family's values of kindness and second chances, which his father so eloquently exemplifies. Without the strategic calculation that frequently characterizes interactions in Genoa City, it is an opportunity to carry out an act of genuine kindness. He might be given a mirror to look at his own past while assisting Claire in piecing everything together. The dualities of heritage and reinvention are highlighted thematically by this coincidence of events, Colin's deception and Claire's search. Colin can't break free from the habits of a lifetime because of his legacy. His last deception confirms his fate as a predator and a lifelong outsider. It is the act of a guy who knows no other way to be. Conversely, Claire is making a concerted effort to escape the terrible legacy that Jordan forced upon her. She is trying to reimagine herself by fully and uncomfortably assimilating the past rather than denying it. She realizes that she must accept the full narrative, the good and the bad, the truth and the lies, in order to develop into a whole person. She is asking Kyle to actively and bravely pursue that assimilation. Additionally, it investigates the idea of truth as a group effort. The whole truth is rarely possessed by one person in a place where secrets are valued as money. It is dispersed among several participants, each of whom is in possession of a piece of the puzzle. Claire must become a collector of these pieces in order to complete her trip. One piece, belonging to Audra, is in Kyle's possession. Others contain fragments of Jordan's past, her own early years, and the history of the Newman family, of which she is now a member. Her capacity to gather these fragments and put them together into a logical whole is essential to her survival and assimilation. This is completely at odds with the way a Colin or a Jordan operate, which involves gathering information and using it to fabricate harmful lies. They employ lies to destroy. Claire looks for the truth to build. In The Young and the Restless, this scene serves as a pivotal point in the overall storyline structure. Colin's ultimate deception marks the end of a chapter and provides the conclusive evidence that certain characters are irredeemably entrenched in their ways and cannot be changed. Characters like Jill and Billy are able to possibly move on after it provides for a cleaning and the removal of a constant source of toxicity. At the same time, a new chapter is opened by Claire's quest for the Audra tale via Kyle. Beyond the initial victim narrative, it marks the start of a more thorough and nuanced investigation of her character. Through Kyle and Claire, it creates a new alliance between the Abbott and Newman families, not on a business level, but rather on a compassionate, human level. Undoubtedly, it foretells future conflict, as the whole truth frequently does, but disagreement is what fosters development rather than repetitive devastation. In the end, the tale of Claire's plea and Colin's most recent scam serves as a potent comparison study. It marks the conclusion of a story that was written dishonestly and the start of a new one that is written with authenticity in mind. It depicts one character battling to become her best self while another gives in to the darkest side of herself. The unadulterated humanity of Claire's wish to know is what gives it its emotional power. Her appeal to Kyle is about the most basic human need, to comprehend one's own genesis story, rather than seeking revenge or acquiring power. This modest, fundamental quest for truth is what gives the story its enduring heart and guarantees that the personal stays politically charged in Genoa City's volatile world, a world full of high-stakes business and dramatic turns.